Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Game of Thrones podcast. I'm your host, Carmine of Red Team Review, and I'm joined here once again by the always charming and lovable Preston Jacobs. Preston?
What? Yeah, Game of Thrones.
Really? After you destroyed it in your last review, I feel like that would not be the reaction I would expect from you.
I don't even know if I'm being sarcastic anymore. I don't know what's even... I'm just, disaffected Gen Xer. Don't know.
Well, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Thrones podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing Season 8, Episode 1 of Thrones, the final season, called Winterfell. As always, we're available on SoundCloud.
You mean Episode 68?
Right. As always, wait, isn't that 71?
No, because last season only had 7 episodes. This is the 60. But so when I don't know if all of you noticed this during the premiere, but they didn't actually have the name of the episode beforehand or during it. It just said episode 68.
Well, Preston, let me finish my intro. Jesus.
Oh,
As always,
fine.
We're available on SoundCloud and iTunes, so consider checking us out on those platforms. And if you do check us out on iTunes, please leave us a review. It would help out a lot. Also, be sure to leave your thoughts and questions down below. We may cover them in the next episode of the podcast. Now, before we start the whole discussion, a couple of things, before we begin, a few orders of business. First off, Fire and Blood has not been canceled. We're still doing Fire and Blood, as we just been put on hold. We will continue it after Season 8 is over. And, the reason we've been kind of slow on these is because Preston has moved back to the United States, and he's been, busy trying to find a house, amongst other personal things, which I won't get into. But, Another thing is that we are going to start doing live streaming before every single episode, or we're going to try to, and we're going to have Phil the Issues Guy, because he's an amazing live streamer. Definitely check out his channel. He's going to be joining us, so it's going to be...
And a delightful person.
Yeah, I really enjoy the chemistry between the three of us. I thought, because I usually think more than 2 people on a podcast is a crowd, but no, he melds in perfectly, and he also is a great moderator for the chat as well, so... Definitely look forward to it. The next live stream we'll be doing is on Preston's channel this coming Sunday, so prepare for that one. And I think that's all we have to get out of the way. Anything else you can think of, Preston?
No. Let's get into the nitty gritty.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you want to cover first? Because there's so much to talk about here.
Oh gosh.
Do you want to get King's Landing out of the way? Because I feel like the meat and bones of this episode was Winterfell.
So you want to do it by location?
Yeah. That's how we've always done it.
Have we?
Yeah, that's how we always done it.
Versus chronological, I don't know. Versus what we find most interesting. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go King's Landing. So King's Landing.
Before we get into that, what did you think of the episode overall on a scale from 1 to 10? I would give it a 7.5.
No, I mean it was stronger than any episode of last season.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was just even though nothing much happened, it was a lot of time killing, and I kind of knew there'd be time killing. I don't know. A lot of it was the performance of the Sam Tarly actor at the end.
Oh yeah, John Bradley.
And, yeah, John Bradley is and. I mean, that scene by itself, was really a lot, and so that was, and the shocker cliffhanger, kind of was very well done, Nikolai Koster, I can never get his name.
I just call him Nikolai.
Nikolai did, considering he had 5 seconds of screen time, those 5 seconds were pretty well done, oh man, this is, so I mean, it ended very strongly.
Yes, I think so too. But yeah. Give me a rating, on scale from 1 to 10.
Let's go with an 8.
An 8, higher than my rating. I give it a 7.5. You give it an 8.
Well, every time I give a rating, you're always like, what? And so I bumped it up. Maybe 7.5. I don't know.
Right. Okay. I'm going to take off 1 point for every episode this season just because they killed off Littlefinger. It's only fair. But before we get into the King's Landing stuff, Did you notice all the fucking callbacks? I made a video on all the callbacks.
It was a good video, yeah.
Even then, I missed some. Real quick, are you a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, by the way?
I am.
Did you know Mac was in the episode?
What? Really?
Yeah, he's the first guy Theon kills aboard the Silence.
Oh, I mean, if Mac is killed in the dark, like, does anyone know?
Right. Someone pointed this one out, which was pretty cool. Jaime pulling off his hood is the same way he pulled off his helmet in episode 1, but the way he did it is a very different Jaime apparently. Another thing someone said, which I also thought was pretty cool, is that when we first see Jaime arriving in Winterfell in season 1, episode 1, his hair is golden blonde. Now when he arrives in Winterfell, there's a shade of gray there, signifying that his allegiances have changed a little. The prostitutes mentioning Eddie when they're with Bronn. Eddie is supposed to be Ed Sheeran's character from last season when Arya sits down with him.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Supposedly that's like a callback to that.
What happens to Eddie? Eddie dies?
I don't know.
Didn't they say his like
eyelids?
Eyelids were burned off?
I have no idea. I don't know if that's... I think it's just... I doubt that was Ed Sheeran's character's name, but I guess it's supposed to be like a call to like the actor being in the show. And Theon rescuing Yara parallels Yara attempting to rescue him back in season 4, and they both bury an axe into someone's head. And yeah. So amongst there's so many fucking callbacks, but also
or the show is really repetitive and then you can read into a callback.
God, you're so negative.
I mean, so you have to admit some of the callbacks were accidental. I mean, some of them are intentional. Like it's very clear, like the little boy at the beginning and everybody being lined up and things like that are all intentional. But some of these callbacks might be accidental.
I think most of them are intentional. Maybe some are accidental. I don't know. I feel like with Thrones, as popular as it is, they're very meticulous in some things. Obviously, mistakes are made, but I think most callbacks are intentional. And I know we're getting off, like, we're still not getting to the episode, but the new opening, I gotta mention it. Did you notice how it's going backwards now?
Well, that was something I learned from your video, yes. I'd noticed the phrase in there, and I was like, why? Like, on my first watch, I was like, that castle looks like the Frey sigil. Mm-hmm. But I was like, why is the Frey sigil in the beginning? Because I remember, it being ancient history in the original opening.
The Doom of Valyria, the House Sigils fighting the Targaryen dragon for Robert's Rebellion, and the crowning of the stag. Now it's the Night King's, the White Dragon burning down the wall, Red Wedding, and then the birth of Dany's dragons. Now, I think they fucked up on the birth of Dany's dragons because there's 4 dragons in there, not 3. That's something I also missed.
Oh.
So I don't know what the 4th dragon's doing there, but I thought it was the birth of Dany's dragons because the comet is in the background.
Yeah, yeah. 4th, I mean, is Dany in the picture?
No, it's just the dragons with the comet. So I'm going to go ahead.
Maybe Dany represents one of the dragons.
Maybe that's stretching it a bit, but I guess. What do you think about
maybe one of the eggs is a twin, and one of the dragons was left behind, and she didn't notice, and just like Ghost was left behind and was almost not noticed, and this 4th dragon is out there causing trouble.
What? No, when she gets the chest with the dragon eggs, there's only 3 in there. Are you saying there's like a 4th one underneath the 3?
No, have you ever cracked an egg and had a twin?
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not saying this is. I'm saying it's up. That would be crazy, but not gonna happen. But yeah.
That would be. Huh. Okay, I can see that. That would. I'll be honest. That'd be fucking stupid. But whatever. But anyways, let's get to King's Landing. Let's talk about King's Landing. Let's get this out of the way. So I thought the King's Landing scene was probably like not the greatest one this episode. It's the worst one this episode, I believe, because the whole thing with Cersei. At this point, I even said it in my review. Euron is just rapey Ramsay. Like he's just creepy, rapey Ramsay.
So far, he's not as cruel as Ramsay, as far as we know.
Yeah, because apparently he didn't torture Yara.
Right. Well, has he tortured anyone? I mean, he's just kind of, he's just kind of crazy, right? Crazy and wants to kill people. But but he doesn't get off on torture like Ramsay or even Joffrey did.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. He's certainly, if you're trying to like escalate your baddies, like he's not worse than Ramsay.
We've seen worse, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So in that sense, he's a little disappointing as a villain. I mean, I do think he's entertaining on screen. I'll grant that, like, I'm not bored by his scenes. He's a joke. He's laughable, but he's at least entertaining.
His appearance, his entrance on the bridge was way more intimidating than he is now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they did that bridge scene really well, and then they just freaking failed from then on in like making Euron interesting.
Right.
I mean, at least in the same way that Book Euron is interesting. Like when you see Book Euron, you're like, oh, like Book Euron is a step up from Ramsay. You know,
he's a suave James Bond villain, is what I think we've said before.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's also like he does the torture thing. He does the Ramsay torture thing.
Isn't there like a sample chapter where he ties his own brother to like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And before that though, I mean, he forces the warlocks to cannibalize each other.
Oh
he,
yeah.
He like leaves them around like without limbs on. He tortures his own brother. He all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's
Yeah, well, Euron is clearly more interesting in the books, as are most characters. But the one problem I have with this here is like his ultimate goal is to fuck the queen. I
fuck the queen.
I don't really get that.
Right. Versus like Book Euron, who wants to like destroy the world and like make it a feast for crows, like, and just kind of eat off of the destruction of everything, benefit off of the destruction, I mean, the fact that the fourth book is named for Euron, means he's a big deal, but like, he's just not a big deal in the show. I just haven't felt like he's a worthy adversary.
This last season definitely showed him as one. I mean, we've never really had any like strong naval power in Thrones before his arrival. Like people just kind of sailed somewhere, and occasionally Stannis will sail somewhere and like attack that place. But Euron definitely shows what a good naval force can do. But what your thoughts on this scene? I wasn't a big fan of it. Like the whole, like at this point, I'm kind of tired of Cersei. I don't know. Like I just feel like if you've seen one Cersei scene in previous seasons, I mean you've kind of seen them all at this point, and I get it. She's alone. She's depressed. She's sad and miserable, and at the same time, it's very beautiful to watch in a way. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it.
She's dropped into this cartoonish villainry where she like enjoys being evil, like she enjoys being bad, like she's become a mustache twirling kind of villain who's like happy in doing things that are dastardly for no reason other than it's dastardly, like there's no reason she should be smiling at the wall falling. Like, okay, like her enemies are going to die. Her enemies are going to die, but her enemies that aren't even like, who haven't really done that much to her personally, like it's one thing to torture Ilaria Sand, but like why should she hate Jon Snow and Dany and that much, I
would argue because Jon Snow and Dany to channel Kylo Ren here, I would argue Jon Snow and Dany represent the past that she hates the most, and she wants to let it all die so she can actually move forward, because Jon Snow represents someone Cersei hated the most, and that was Ned Stark. And Dany represents the old era of when Cersei was just kind of a nobody. And she wants to let that die as well. She wants to let all those people who remind her of before she was queen to just go and die. And she wants to move on into the new era where she's queen and she can make everything better in her own way.
Well, I wish she'd explain that, Like, I don't really understand why she likes being bad. Like, how they've framed Cersei is, they frame Cersei as this, like, as this powerful, as this mother who will do anything to defend her children. And then all of a sudden they switch her to I like doing things because they're bad, like, and that's a big switch for the character. You know, the and both of those personalities are completely different from book Cersei, who is just insane on a whole nother level, but in a completely different way than enjoying being bad and doing everything for her kids, and so I don't know if I buy the shift in her character. They could have pulled it off, with some sort of connection to the Maggie the Frog prophecy, which has been promptly forgotten. But like that Maggie the Frog prophecy was the way to sort of shift everything and like have her like fall into insanity. But she hasn't really fallen into insanity, not like in the book how she's insane. She's just kind of fallen into this, like, I like being a bad girl.
But I'm gonna look very depressed doing it.
Yeah, I guess so.
The Maggie the Frog prophecy is still kind of going on because, as we saw, she's drinking again. So maybe she did lose. Because remember, we did read those season 7 leaks, and the leaks said that she was going to have a miscarriage. So that never happened. So I mean, I didn't buy season 7. I normally, for the first 5 seasons of Thrones, I would always buy the Blu-ray. I haven't bought the Blu-ray for season 6 or 7, so I don't know if there's a deleted scene where she did miscarry, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's odd that she was drinking and that they didn't have any mention of it, But they did mention her child, right? Because Tyrion says that she has something to live for. So, I mean, that's an important thing. I mean, we as viewers are supposed to still think she's pregnant. Like, we're not supposed to think that she's not pregnant. So, I mean, at this point, I just have to assume she was pregnant and was having a sip of wine, maybe to throw Euron off. It was just a sip. Maybe she was trying to throw him off, and he was thinking, well, because before she gave away that she was pregnant by not having wine, and so maybe she's trying to, like, just have a sip of wine and as a way to like fool Euron into thinking that she's not pregnant. And then somehow she's going to convince Euron that her pregnancy is his, even though months have gone by, and I don't know how that's going to happen, but I think they're going to try to pull that off.
Well, from the beginning of season 7 to the beginning of season 8, I feel like a few weeks have gone by, but we'll get to that later.
But the problem is Jamie impregnated her like episode 3 of last season, so it's been a while.
It's been a minute. So yeah.
But I wanted to talk about with that scene where Harry Strickland comes in.
Oh right, I was going to mention the Golden Company because
Company comes in. Yeah,
they have like 5 seconds of screen time. But go ahead.
Yeah, they have 5 seconds of screen time. They kind of look like Unsullied for a second, and then they come in, and it's very clear to me that they filmed Cersei saying that there are no elephants later. Oh yeah. So one thing I've learned, like watching a lot of TV, is that anytime there is dialogue where they don't show someone speaking, it usually means that the person had to redo that dialogue in post. And so Harry Strickland tells her that there are no elephants while we're looking at Cersei. And then Cersei says, oh, I'm so disappointed. I heard that the Golden Company was going to have elephants. And he's like, oh, yes, elephants, they were not good for travel. And that entire conversation happens without flashing back to Harry Strickland. And while it's just this straightforward shot of Cersei against, like, the throne and nothing else. So I imagine, like they'd filmed the scene with Harry Strickland and Euron and Cersei, and then later they were like, CGI budget, we don't have it for the elephants. Fuck. Okay, let's get Lena Headey back in, pop her in the chair, film like a couple lines, and then we're done. And then we'll edit it in. Like when I watch that scene, that's what it like. It seems very obvious to me that it was altered in post, and patched together. So I think they probably originally hoped that there were going to be some elephants, and then later on they're just like, no, sorry.
You could also argue that the reason they did it is because they knew the book fans would fucking bitch and complain, and maybe they wanted to like give a reason why. I thought Harry Strickland's reason as to why they didn't bring elephants was perfectly like reasonable. I mean,
Yeah, it is. It's also, I also wonder, because in the book the elephants are notably missing, and they're probably going to show up. Um, Thematically, it's just like it just happens to it. You don't bring up elephants and then don't have them, come back later.
Right.
As somebody,
Chekhov's gun.
Chekhov's gone, right? So I mean, not to mention like there's in the book there are two battles going on at the same time where there's some missing elephants to the east, and so in Slaver's Bay, the Battle of Marine, we have some missing elephants in the east, and at Storm's End, the Battle for Storm's End, there's some missing elephants in the east, and you kind of have this idea that these elephants are going to show up and shift the course of the battle. So I do wonder if, they're also, I wish, but I don't know, considering like the CGI budgets, but like I wish they're setting us up like, oh, there's not going to be elephants, but then there's going to be elephants.
I don't know, man. I won't hold your breath. I mean, did you see that Disney's Aladdin flying in the carpet scene with John and Danny? I mean, I feel like they're really going. We'll see.
Go for the dragons. I thought that Winterfell looked unusually bad CGI wise.
Well, we'll get there. Do you want to discuss anything regarding the Golden Company any further, or Theon and the Yara stuff? Because Theon and Yara stuff seemed like straight cut. It was a nice little scene, but there wasn't really much to it. I mean, Yara.
It was so fast. It was almost like they were getting something out of the way because they built this up. They built up Theon's rescue for Yara last season, and then it was just there. It was rescued.
Well, Yara says how they're going to go take back the Iron Islands, but can't Euron just take his fleet, go there real quickly? I mean, judging by how fucking travel works now, can't he just go there in like a day and take it back and come back to King's Landing and do whatever? I mean,
I guess, but they also need some place for Danny and Jon to retreat after they lose Winterfell. Unless they're gonna like. So I've been thinking. Well, I mean, this is getting ahead of ourselves again. I can't. But like. Where after we all kind of know that Winterfell is going to fall, like are Danny and Jon going to retreat to Howland Reed's castle?
No.
And well, I'm just saying there's Mira. We could have Mira show up again if we wanted.
They're probably going to either retreat to Dragonstone or Moat Cailin, because Moat Cailin would seem like the most strategic place for them to retreat back to.
It would, logically. So you could go to Moat Cailin, and then maybe Mira could show up if you wanted Mira to show up. Or they could, she had mentioned that they can retreat to Pike, which is always a possibility. I mean, because we kind of know that the beginning sequence is going to show that yellow brick road, that blue brick road, like moving down, like the map.
Nice touch, by the way. I really did like that.
Yeah, no, it was very well done. But in closing on that, I was disappointed they didn't develop the Golden Company a little more. I would have liked to learn a little more about them, their history, and everything, Blackfires or whatever. But, they didn't. It's just, they're there.
They'll probably put it in the histories and lore for the Blu-ray. They always do that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right,
so,
on to Winterfell.
On to Winterfell, and once again, we open up with the call back to Season 1, Episode 1, when King Robert arrives. And almost, if you saw my video, literally everything is essentially a callback here. I mean, Arya sees the Hound coming in, but this time he doesn't have his helmet on, which you could argue signifies that he's not a dog anymore. He's his own man now. A little boy looking over, while the royal army comes in, same as Bran, what Bran did. Winterfell is yours, your grace. Yeah. Could you think that this could be the show trying to tell the audience that Sansa is the true leader of Winterfell? She's the true lady of Winterfell? Because Ned was the one that said to Robert, Winterfell is yours, your grace, but now Sansa says it to Dany.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, Sansa's definitely Lady of Winterfell now, and no one knows, as Lyanna was saying, no one knows what Jon is. Like what do you do when you're a king that stepped down, but don't have a lordship after that, like anywhere. So I guess he's just the spiritual head everything.
So this is something I actually wanted to actually talk about, because you said something that was fucking hilarious. You go, well, why do they care if he's king or not? Obviously, they're going to get married and they're in love. Is he just going to be king next week, right, in your video?
Yeah.
I feel like the North is kind of like... The northern people are kind of like the Ironborn in a sense. You know how the Ironborn philosophy is, they take what is theirs? Like when Robb sent Theon to Balon Greyjoy in Season 2, the letter that Robb sent with Theon was, if you help me take down the Lannisters, I will give you the crown to the Iron Islands or whatever. And Balon's like, piss on that. I'll take what is mine. The North is kind of the same way. They don't want Dany. They don't want a king who was made king by marriage. They want a guy who was made king because he earned it. And Jon did earn it, and now he's stepping down. And even if he does get with Dany, it doesn't matter because, it's through marriage. They don't want him to be king through marriage. They want him to be king because they kind of elected him king. I guess this is the problem with democracy in a feudal era. Is if when they elect you and you don't do what they want, I mean, but if you inherit the title, then you have a bit more freedom to do whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine, the 14 Northerners that are alive, but I mean, I suppose that the wildlings, considering that the North right now is mostly wildling, well, should be. I mean, I don't know if the show recognizes this, but the Northern Army is mostly wildlings and Vale Lords. And so, yeah, I guess if we accept that they're mostly wildlings definitely don't like kneeling. They choose their leaders. They're not told who to follow and things like that. Mm-hmm. So if there's some, wildling tradition in there, I could buy that.
Well, people getting really fucking annoyed with the Northern Lords. I mean, like... Jon keeps telling you assholes that if we don't work together and ally ourselves with these people, that we're all gonna die because these petty squabbles mean nothing against the army of the dead. And I always feel like every time he explains this, he's explained it probably for the 50th time by now, they just look at him like, huh?
I remember, and everybody's frustration I get, like, at this point with Season 8, you're like, how much infighting can society like tolerate, before we go, come on, would we really have that much infighting? I don't know. I mean, we've got a lot of infighting today over like really important issues that aren't getting addressed. Like, we could say like global warming, like in climate change, like the fact that there can be infighting on something that's so like obvious and needs to be fixed, and so I guess that's what they're going for. I mean, I definitely had that feeling when reading A Feast for Crows, like, after the War of the Five Kings is over, I'm like, okay, people are finally going to like, a new era is going to come in and like, we're finally done with the fighting and they're going to deal with the others. And then I'm reading it and it's like, what, the Dornish want to start a war? Like the Ironborn want to start a war? Like, oh God, like how much, I remember reading the book going, how much more war can there be? Everybody's dead, And so that's what they're doing. That's what I guess everybody's having that feeling too. Like, come on, how much more fighting can there be? And this gets into Jon and Dany too. Like, it's not just like, oh, the Sansa hate and the Dany hate. Like, it's all leading up to like a Jon versus Dany situation, right?
Yes,
like
Team Jon and Team Dany. Yeah, that's what it.
Right.
That's I like that the show is doing that. This is good. The show is making us question because Dany and Jon, well, mostly Dany, has been the protagonist since Season 1. Jon was just a character, one of the characters, and he doesn't really become a protagonist until Season 3, I would argue. Because even in Season 2, he was just kind of walking around. Have you noticed that about Season 2? I don't know if you binged the whole series all over again. But in Season 2...
Season 2 is flirting with Rose.
Yeah. So, I mean, he doesn't truly become a protagonist until Season 3, in my opinion. But Dany's one of the main protagonists since Season 1. And now we're supposed to question, which is great, the validity of her rule and whether or not she's a little loco, because I do like how that's going down.
And this actually gets into, so one of my big problems with all of the lineage talk that the fandom is obsessed with, and like God, like when I first joined the fandom, like that's all fucking people talked about was like Jon's parentage, over and over and over and over and over again. And one of the things that's like frustrating about it is the entire message of the book is that like that this feudalism and divine right and like passing things to birthright is a really horrible way to rule the world. Like it's dreadful and it leads to nothing but war and conflict. And the fact that everybody's sitting there going, oh, but if Jon were king, like then all the problems would go away. And it's just so laughable. Like no, the problems wouldn't go away. Like not everyone in the world is going to sit there and go, oh yeah, no, Jon Snow, totally the ruler, you know, because he found some harp in the crypts. And so I had difficulty like coming to terms with the fact that there is both a story that is about birthright and lineage and a story telling us that birthright and lineage is horrible and everything pointing to this like, you know, important birthright of Jon Snow. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, oh, it's like R plus L equals J isn't something good to like lead to a chosen one to save the world. It's something bad. It's something to create more fucking conflict. Like Jon's birthright is creating a conflict with Dany. Like just when they'd gotten together,
right?
Just when they'd gotten their shit together and organized an army, like his parentage is ruining it. Like that's George R. R. Martin's style. Mm-hmm. Like once again, like the birthright talk like is causing problems. Like it's not the solution, it's the problem. And that's, you know, I think they're actually like doing it right. I mean, granted, this last season is very based on what George R. R. Martin said, but R plus L equals J isn't the solution. R plus L equals J is the problem.
I mean, yeah. I find it funny that you're saying like, you know, they're fighting about like Jon's parentage. Even the fandom fights about Jon's parentage. If you say like his real parents are Ned and Ashara Dane, people get up in arms about it. Or Brandon Stark, right. And people get up in arms about this. So,
right. Yeah.
I mean, even there's one crazy guy I know on YouTube who thought it was Ned Stark plus Lyanna. Can you believe that?
It would be. I mean, they're not in the same place, but yeah.
Preston, I'm talking about you. I was making a joke because you.
Oh, I didn't. I mean, I said that it's interesting theory of the incest baby, mm-hmm. but the point is that the parentage talk and all this parentage talk, like, it's a problem, not the solution. It's creating more rifts. It's not solving the problem.
Right. Well, to be fair, I do like the northern conflict here. I just wish we had more episodes to explore it in some way. Maybe have some kind of coup brewing with Sansa there. I don't know, maybe. But we just don't have enough episodes to really explore it. Not to mention, I do love the flakiness of some of the northern houses, most specifically House Glover, who, a couple weeks ago, they just declared Jon king in the north, and now they're like, you guys do your thing. We'll stay over here.
Yeah, I don't know any of the, like, how any of these relationships work. Like, how did Lyanna Mormont become, like, the most powerful Northern Lord? like the most influential one, like the one to stand up all the time, mm-hmm. when she has no army. And how did Bronzion Royce, like, how is he like when Alice Karstark arrives, he like welcomes her into Winterfell. Is he like the steward now? Like I don't understand how any of these relationships work. They're looking for things for people to do. You know, you could have had Davos welcoming
True.
her.
Davos is essentially the steward of Winterfell now.
Yeah, he could be.
Yeah.
You know?
Why not? He's Jon's right hand. Why not? But
Why not?
But anyways, so on the topic of Jon and Dany, I do like their relationship. I feel like the actors, both Emilia Clarke and Kit Harington, have stepped it up to make it seem like Jon and Dany are really in love. And I will say, as kind of weird as the whole, like, you know, flying on dragons thing, which I wasn't really a big fan of, I do like their relationship. I really do. I think it's cute. I think it's adorable. It was nicely done in this episode. We needed to see something like this because last season it felt like they just, you know, all of a sudden got into each other because Targaryen's incest.
Right.
But now I feel like they're a couple.
Yeah, I mean, at least they have an attempt at flirting and enjoying each other's company. Like last season, it was it was kind of from nowhere that they had this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we made a lot of jokes about their sizzling sexual chemistry, which, so yes, it's a remarkable improvement. It's not at the same level as Jon and Ygritte. Sexual chemistry,
no!
But
I have people in my comment section saying the cave scenes are way better than the waterfall stuff.
Right, but you got to remember again, like Rose Leslie is a much better actress than Kit Harington as an actor or Emilia Clarke as an actor.
Ooh.
I don't even know if they would deny that. Like Rose Leslie is a really incredible actress, but also they weren't acting. Like Rose Leslie and Kit Harington were really into each other. So they got married. So it was easy to have sexual chemistry when there was sexual chemistry.
Right.
While Jon and Dany, it's better than before, but it's just not really there.
I thought it was cute though. Come on, you got to admit that. Like they're having
they're
having a little date, but I do love what you said in your video about like
poor Ned Umber.
No, not poor Ned Umber. What you said with Bran, he's like, "Hey, the Night King's coming, so let's hop to it." 5 minutes later, oh no, they're off having their own little date. Jesus Christ.
Now, a lot of people were really angry that Jon just kind of jumped on a dragon, and that was that. Like, there was no big scene. Like, it didn't feel like a big scene. It was just, oh, what? Hey, why don't you jump on that dragon? Oh, what?
Was he really riding the dragon? It just felt like he was hanging on for dear life. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I guess so. Somebody said that there was a cut line. That was Kit Harington saying, he almost like followed my thoughts or something like that, but it was cut.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that line being cut?
It would be a pretty big line, right? That he has a telepathic connection to the dragon, due to his blood, things like that, but.
Do you think that's too on the nose for the show right now?
I think that's why they cut it. It was just a little too much,
Well, when Jon does learn about his parentage, he is technically in front of the statues of his mother. We see her in the background as Sam tells him, but he also learns it in front of.
Your mother was Lyanna Stark. Pause.
I didn't realize until I saw your video, but yeah, like, for 5 seconds there, Jon was like, did my father have an incestuous relationship with his sister? Oh my god.
I'm Joffrey.
But no, Ned did kind of keep his promise. Next time they see each other, well, I think they saw each other last season, but I'm talking about the statue. They kind of saw each other last season, but Ned did keep his promise in some sense.
Yeah.
When they saw
each other. It wasn't next time, but it was like, the time.
Ned would be there when Jon.
Which it would have been a lot better. Granted that there was a fuck ton of scenes in front of Ned's statue so far, but it would have been nice had like the bones finally arrived, and then he's bringing the bones down, and then he's told while like putting the bones in the tomb. Like then it would have been really like a parallel. Next time we see each other.
See, I don't agree with because every once in a while you have like fixing the episode or fixing the season, and some of your choices I don't agree with. But you do make when you make a good choice, it's a really good choice. Like I remember last season, I believe it was episode 1 or 2 when the Hound is trying to bury those people he stole from.
Yeah,
you had a really good idea of like he's trying to bury them, but like. The earth is like a little frozen, and he breaks down crying because he feels like he can't do anything right. Like that was a really good idea.
Right. Yeah. Like he can't bury them both physically and metaphorically.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been like the best.
And bringing the bones and all that stuff is.
And your end to my idea of Podrick being a villain, right? That
was. By the way, did you notice how like. I feel so bad for Gwendolyn Christie because she was in this episode. She had no lines.
No lines. I know.
No lines whatsoever. She's more important than I would argue Gendry at this point, and Gendry has more lines than she does. Like even
oh my God.
Even Ned Umber has more fucking lines than she does.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, it was so crowded, and great. I mean, and we're gonna thin that. We're gonna thin the herd a little, next episode.
Right.
But yeah, yeah. I do feel really bad. I mean, she's had nothing. She's had nothing to do for so many seasons.
And well, she's also had nothing to do in Star Wars, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw the celebration panel for Star Wars, but John Boyega confirmed that Captain Phasma is, in fact, dead this time. She's not coming back for the next episode of Star Wars, so I just feel bad for Gwendolyn Christie. Her character is wasted no matter where she is, so no matter who she's playing.
Yeah, and it's too bad because she is one of the stronger actors on the show. It's like she puts in like top notch performance. Every scene she's in, she's fantastic, and yet they just really underutilize her.
Well, she's probably gonna have a really big scene with Jaime next episode because Jaime's in Winterfell now.
Yeah, I mean she'll probably save Jaime, right?
Probably during the battle, yeah, because we did see her and Jaime on the battlements. So, but let's move on a little to Sansa and Tyrion. Now, this is a huge. This has been making people fight each other in like Facebook groups and subreddits and even
that's weird because it's such a useless conversation,
right?
But yeah,
but even in my own comment section, I had some social justice warriors come to me and try to rip me apart for what I said. Now, I was being facetious. And I was being ridiculous on purpose when I say that Sansa should show some Tyrion of modicum of respect. I mean, this is what I said in my video. I said if I was Sansa, I'd give him a hand job for how well he treated me. Like, I was being, ridiculous. Obviously, I don't mean that. But at the same time, though, this is my problem with that scene. Or with, not the scene, but with Sansa in general. I don't like this attitude she has. Because her accomplishments aren't really her accomplishments as much as people like to think they are. I mean, Tyrion says we both survive. Yes, but it was mainly due to other people, not her own wit and intelligence and cleverness. It was mainly due to, Littlefinger and him at some point in time. He saves her a couple of times. He keeps her safe. And all I'm saying is, in my review of what I said, is all I'm saying, Sansa doesn't owe Tyrion a hug or a kiss or, a smile, and she doesn't owe him nothing. But it is common courtesy to recognize that when you were in King's Landing, everybody was treating you like garbage. This one guy, treated you with respect. And he risked his own neck. She doesn't know this, of course, but he risked his own neck multiple times to keep your purity intact. Right. I'm not saying you should give him a hug or a smile or a kiss, but you should show him a bit of decency. Treat him with some respect. Because the other argument on this side, on this issue is, sometimes we like to forget that these characters, are human beings, and Sansa has gone through a lot of shit. His family is responsible for most of her unhappiness. So I get where she's coming from, and obviously she doesn't see the scenes the audience sees where Tyrion is just being a great guy. I get it, but she should still treat him with some respect. Now I'm gonna throw this to you. Like, what do you think, Liz? You think she should treat him with some respect, or does she owe him nothing?
I mean, see, this is the problem with the word respect. Like when people use that word, there's like, oh, show me respect, and then there's like showing general respect and human decency that you would to like a regular person on the street. Mm-hmm. And I think that's linguistically why people are getting in this fight,
right?
Because they're when you say like, oh, she should show him respect, you haven't, I have this image of this guy and this wife beater screaming at his wife that he abuses, saying, oh, you need to show me respect, woman, versus like, oh, we should all show respect to each other, and human.
Well, let me rephrase it. She should treat him a little nicely, because I felt like she treated him rather coldly when she really shouldn't have. She should treat him just a little little nicer. I mean,
it is true, and Tyrion chose not to, essentially rape Sansa when everyone around him, including the system, was telling him that he needed to, break in his new wife. And she was even like, somewhat accepting of that system as well. And so Tyrion quite boldly did not do that.
He did not do it even after Tywin kind of threatened him.
Right. Tywin threatened him. The entire system says that it should be done. He would get Winterfell and all of these sorts of things. And because Tyrion felt sympathy for Sansa and him, because he's a sucker for the sob story, he didn't do it. And considering that the entire system and all of these people around him were pressuring him to do that, yeah, I mean, I do give Tyrion props for that. It's one of the nicest things he's ever done, considering that Tyrion is a horrible person for the most part in all of these other situations. I mean, in the book, he's a rapist later, and a murderer and all sorts of horrible things.
For our show only audience, when does Tyrion actually do these horrible things? Like, when does Tyrion rape someone in the books?
In the books, Tyrion goes to a whorehouse and in Essos and proceeds to have sex with a prostitute, first consensually, and he then ends up like vomiting, and it's very clear that the prostitute now is disgusted by him, and he proceeds to get back on top of her and forces himself upon her in an anger, vengeful sort of way. Like he decides that he hates this woman because she's looking at him in a disgusting fashion, and he jumps on top of her and has non-consensual sex with her. And some people would, I understand some people would argue, oh, well, you already paid, all that crap. But, I mean, no, the scene is definitely there to paint Tyrion in a bad light. He's a bad guy. Not to mention the fact that he strangled Shay to death and killed his dad. So,
but in the show, I mean, so you agree that Sansa should show him just a little bit of kindness.
I think she should show him just a little bit of kindness for considering that, and maybe she's not aware of how much trouble she caused Tyrion and how much he protected her afterwards. Because afterwards, at least in the book, they were all like, "Why don't you implicate Sansa?" And he's like, "Nah, I can't. She's my wife." There was a protection thing where he could have just blamed Sansa and been like, "Oh, it was all her. I saw her put the crystal in the wine or whatever." Like, he could have done that, but he didn't do that. So it might be that she's also just not aware.
Well, yeah, no, she wasn't there for those scenes where he refuses to do that. But like I was saying, it's
or maybe she wasn't aware that, like, when he looked at her, and she also might not be aware that when he looked at her and he saw this innocent thing that he didn't want to have sex with, that was too young, that didn't want to have consensual sex with him, and chose not to have sex with her. Like, she didn't know his reasonings. She could have thought, well, he had his whores, and so he just didn't want to. So she might not even know that it was a favor to her. So it's complicated.
If only these characters actually acted like real people and actually sat down and had a conversation. So what happened after Joffrey's wedding? Where did you go? Littlefinger.
Did you kill him? Dude. Like, do you know that no one knows who? Like, the only two people alive that know who killed Joffrey are Jaime and Cersei. Like, nobody else knows. Like, Tyrion is sitting there, I assume, thinking that Sansa still did it. Also, no one knows about the cat spa. The cat spa's not solved.
Yeah, I don't think Bran's gotten to episode 1 yet. Wait, no, yes, he has. Yes, he has. Never mind. No.
The cat spa. We have no idea who set the cat spa in the show. It's probably never going to be resolved. But yeah, I mean, when he's like, "Oh, you took off right after," I assume it's Tyrion was saying that I think you killed Joffrey. I don't know.
It's like I said, I really didn't. I just really didn't like Sansa's attitude. Like, and I feel like this is part of the writer's fault, because Sansa had such great potential from the very first season. Like, I feel like all the Starks are special in their own way, but Sansa has almost nothing. You tried very hard to convince me that Sansa has something going on because she's unusually beautiful, and you think that, you know, she's kind of putting like kind of the charms on people unwillingly. And in the books, but in the show, like Sansa's just there. And I feel as though there's a huge potential miss with her, where she could have shown her cleverness in her own way, and maybe manipulated Ramsay or even Littlefinger, but not really.
Here's what she's doing right. And if I'm going to say like what's great about Sansa is she's the only one that seems to care about logistics, like running Winterfell and like feeding people. Mm-hmm. Like she's the only one doing that. So I grant her that. You know, and I grant her the fact that she dealt with her birthright getting stolen by Jon pretty well. Mm-hmm. like all of that was done pretty well. But other than that, like, yeah, she's just a weird character. I don't know if I really forgive her for giving up on Rickon and hiding the army from Jon. So I don't know. I mean, I could be on board with Sansa, like, except for those two things are pretty big. Like, it's hard for me to forget stuff. I meet people all the time. Like, some people, like, some word gets around in the office. They're like, "Oh, Preston, I hear you're really into Game of Thrones. I wanted to talk to you about yesterday's episode." And I'm like, okay, you know. And someone will say like, "Oh, my favorite character is Arya," and I'm like, "Oh God!" Like, you know, and so Arya will be, you know, I'm like, your favorite character is someone that chopped up human beings and made them into pies, like, you know, like it's hard for me to like Sansa. Like, I don't like Sansa anymore because it's hard for me to like her when she gave up on her brother Rickon and hid the army from Jon. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how I can forgive that. Like, it's just such a bad choice.
Yes, you can't forget a lot of things. You still can't forget Jiqui amongst other things. So
yeah, so it's tough. It's tough.
But I don't know if you knew this, Preston, but Sansa is the smartest person Arya knows. I don't know if you knew this. I mean, smarter than Jaqen? Jaqen, really? Smarter than Jaqen?
Smarter than Tywin.
And she met Tywin. Smarter than Tywin.
Now, someone else said, well, maybe I forget. Someone else said that the line might be the smartest woman I know. I forget. I have to go back. But still, Catelyn and Melisandre are both pretty smart. So, and she's met both of them.
I mean, let's talk about Arya. So, Arya this episode was not unbearable. I mean, I don't like how she is now, especially with Jon. I mean, I feel like I would have liked their reunion if this was Arya from like 3 seasons ago, back before she was like all like egotistical and, you know, very cocksure of herself.
Right. Like can they have a scene with her not smirking?
Right. Where she's not like, you know, like she's ready to pick a fight with someone if they question her abilities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the scene with her and Jon was kind of cute. But what I really enjoyed the most was the scene with her and Gendry, that little flirting thing.
By the way, I was trying to the scene where so a lot of people were talking about where Jon says, "Oh, you still have needle. Like, have you used it?" And she's like, "Oh, once or twice." And it was very well acted and everything. But then I was like, how many times has she used needle? And I was like, it's not twice, but I want to say like 4 times.
So she used needle to kill.
She killed the little boy first season,
and then again, she used it to kill that one guy in the tavern in season 4.
Right. I think that was Polliver. And then I think she killed either Roarg or Biter. Right.
I don't remember.
Remember they met Roarg and Biter, and then she killed that guy where she like dropped the coin, and then he went down to pick up the coin and she killed somebody. But I'm not sure if she killed it with. She might have killed it with.
Wait, did she ever kill the coin guy?
At some point, she drops a coin in the woods. They like the Hound and her just walking through the woods, and they run along. They run into some soldiers. This is directly after the.
Oh no, she doesn't kill those guys with needles. She kills them like with some like random knife, and the hound's like, "Where'd you get the knife?" And she's like, "I stole it from you." And he's like, "What the fuck? You give me that."
Okay, you're right, because he would have taken needle from her. So so maybe either Rourke or Biter, maybe somebody in the tavern, whether it be the Tickler or Polliver or some. Or no, the Tickler dies. That Tickler dies.
The Tickler's the first name she gives to Jockin, so it's Polliver.
Yeah, I was confused because in the book.
But are we really counting the fat kid in or the little boy in season 1? Because that was by mistake. She didn't mean to do that. So Polliver, are we counting the waif? Did she kill?
Yeah, the waif.
The waif. So I would argue maybe 3 or 4 times she's probably used it to kill someone.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but it's funny because it's like once or twice you think like it's an exaggeration of she's had to use it too many times, and it's like she had to use it.
That's a fair. Yeah.
It's a slight. It's only a slight exaggeration of how.
By the way, another callback is when they John and her meet back up. The way they embrace each other for the first time is the same way they left each other, like the way they embrace, same shots and everything, like the shots over the shoulder.
Right.
But another callback is in the first.
Oh yeah, the kissing of the forehead. Yeah, John kisses Bran on the forehead.
That was like Jesus. But no, this is another callback here is in season 1 when Robert comes and he and Ned are in the crypts of Winterfell. Robert tells Ned, "You have a daughter, I have a son. We'll join our houses." He was clearly talking about Joffrey and Sansa. But we're seeing maybe a little blossom of romance between Gendry and Arya, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah. Though technically, I mean, I guess he's not of his house. I mean, Gendry is of his blood, but he's not of his house. If we're going to be,
he is the last Baratheon, technically.
That's true.
And so, speaking of the last of his houses, I think House Umber is the second confirmed extinct house in the north, right behind House Bolton. All the members of House Bolton and House Umber are confirmed to be dead.
Huh. Yeah, oh man. Poor House Umber. Poor Ned.
You were saying how, I don't know if you were just playing this for laughs, but you were saying like how they couldn't spare a dragon to help Ned Umber go back. After what the Night King did to, fuck, here we go again. What's that dragon's name? Viserion. Thank you. Every fucking time. After the Night King did that to Viserion, I think they're holding back the dragons as a last resort because they don't want the Night King to have another dragon.
Sure, but you could at least scope the area with some crows.
True.
And some ravens, and be like, whoa, Night, they're like only 20 miles out. Like, don't get a move.
But with how creepy Bran has been acting, I don't think anybody wants to go and ask him to do that. I think everybody's just trying to avoid him. Just trying to avoid him at this point.
Somebody did say, like, don't you think Dany should be reeling from the fact that, like, Viserion has been brought to life?
Does she even know it's been brought to life?
Right, like, no, like, Bran says it. Bran, like, drops the bomb when he's like, shut the fuck up, everybody. Like, you're, like, get to work. Like, so, really, Dany shouldn't be, like, in the next scene, like, dropping badass lines about how dragons eat whatever they want. She should be sitting there being like, oh my god, like, my child is now a reanimated corpse. Yeah,
that is, now that you mention it, holy shit, now that you mention it, that is kind of, wow, wow, what a douche, huh?
Yeah, they just really glossed over that.
I feel like Dany in the books would probably be, like, taking a chapter or two to really, like, get over that, more so than, like, a couple of minutes.
Yeah, at least a couple pages. I mean, if a couple pages are given to Dany's bowel movements, you'd think a couple pages would be given to...
For those of you who are not aware, some of Dany's last few chapters in the latest book, A Dance of Dragons, which was released, 8 years ago, she does have massive diarrhea. This is written in the books. I might have Preston do a reading of this, like maybe a 2-minute reading of it with some sexy music in the background, just for the audience.
It's canon.
It's canon. It's a thing. But no. So speaking of Ned Umber, we get to see Last Hearth. Now my problem with Last Hearth is I'm a huge fan for like medieval buildings and stuff like that. I like layouts. I really thought Last Hearth looked smaller than it should have been. It looked like a very small outpost.
You could see Last Hearth because I couldn't see
Well,
it.
I had to turn up the brightness, but yes, I could see Last Hearth. Yes, I could see. It looked like a very small little like shack for some reason. Like the basement looked bigger than the upstairs. But I gotta say the best line in the entire episode was "Stand back, he's got blue eyes. I've always had blue eyes." Like that
Yeah,
was
I chuckled. I chuckled.
but.
They got me.
But I gotta say, I love this scene when they go down the basement and they see Ned Umber has been brutally killed. I love the horror element they're giving the White Walkers and the Night King specifically.
It is interesting, and it's funny that, and this is what will not work if in the future when people decide to binge the series, is what works is it's been 2 years, and so now we can make the White Walkers a mystery again, right? You know how like we've seen the White Walkers, they're out in the open, we've seen what they look like, there's no mystery, but then 2 years go by, between seasons, and now it's like everything's back to being spooky again. Like they didn't show the White Walkers in the episode, and instead it's like this very spooky, like, what are they doing?
Right.
Like what do they look like? What's their nature kind of thing? And I would say they successfully like dialed it back,
Well,
because when you think of how unspooky they looked like in episode 6 of last season, where there was just nothing creepy.
well, yeah, they look like I don't want to say generic fantasy villains, but they did look like fantasy villains. They look like a couple of characters you'd fight from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say one of the
or a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger.
All right, let's not go that far. But I will say one of the best scenes for the White Walkers ever was the final scene from season 2. I recently did a top 5 scenes for season 2, and I really like that one scene where Sam is like shaking with fear, and he sees the White Walker on the horse, and it screeches, and you see the army of the dead, and it's like it's a very effective scene. I really like that one. It's super creepy. I enjoy it, and I did enjoy this one with that element of horror, especially the way they had Ned Umber up against the wall and like. They do the symbols again, but with body parts this time. That was crazy. I love that.
Yeah.
And people keep asking you in specific, but you don't read your comments. What do the symbols really mean?
Well, no one really knows. I mean, we've got a spiral symbol and we have the theta symbol, right?
The theta, yeah. We haven't seen the theta symbol in a while, though.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it on the carved on the wall of the Dragonstone Cave,
and we did see them. They did kill a bunch of wildlings in season 1, episode 1, the very beginning, the very first like scene we seen, with the Night's Watch, the Rangers beyond the wall, and they're looking at the they did carve up those wildlings in that theta position.
Yeah, in the very first episode. So it's like so Ned Umber's spiral of fire is calling back the theta of ice in the first episode. So
Nice. I didn't notice that one. Good. That's a good one.
Yeah. For those that don't know about the theta, it's there's an old George R.R. Martin story called In the House of the Worm where there are two different peoples that use thetas as their symbols, and that theta was a sigil handed down from an old space organization called the Earth's Ecological Engineering Corps, which went around terraforming planets and causing war and all sorts of things. And then it got used as these sigils for these two peoples in this story in the House of the Worm. Whether there's a connection, or they're just, I don't know if it's a coincidence that it's also that there's another theta in this story, or if they're paying homage or what, but nonetheless, now there's this theta. So in Game of Thrones.
Well, some people said that the when Beric lit up Ned Umber's body, and the whole thing set on fire, it kind of looked like the Targaryen symbol a little, the Targaryen sigil, the 3 dragons.
Yeah, it did, and that's the thing about like this idea of sigils being derived from things that were meant something different. So George R.R. Martin has a story called Dying of the Light, where there are 4 holdfasts, and each of the 4 holdfasts have sigils. And eventually, like one of the holdfasts has a sigil of a banshee. And this banshee, there's a question of like why it was their sigil. And eventually they kind of, you get this idea that these people had a telepathic connection to their banshees. And so, we see this with the Starks. Like, they have a telepathic connection with these direwolves. So, of course, the direwolf, like, ends up on their flag and it becomes their sigil. And so there's this idea that, like, sigils can evolve over time from things that were more meaningful in the past. So there's a direwolf on the Stark sigil, but it's a clue, a hint that in ancient times, Starks had a telepathic connection to direwolves. And so, yeah, maybe this connection of fire, and this Targaryen sigil, like, derived from that symbol of fire as well.
And to wrap up the episode, we get the fated meeting again between Jaime and Bran.
Well done. I liked it. That's the big thing I'm looking forward to in the next episode. Like, what would you say to someone? What would you say to someone like, "Oh, I'm sorry I tossed you out a window 8 years ago."
I love how he says to Sam early in the episode, "I'm waiting for a friend." Did you wait there all fucking night? Holy shit.
Yeah, there is a joke. That is a joke that people have been joking around, because Bran, almost all of his scenes are in the courtyard. And like, granted, he's supposed to be rolling himself inside, napping and then waking up early in the morning and rolling himself out. But how? Like, who's helping him? Does he say to a servant, "No, it's okay, leave me here in the middle of winter at night in this court because I'm waiting for a friend"? Yeah. He's bound to come out of the library anytime.
I would love it if, like, there's like a developing friendship between Bran and Jaime now, where Jaime just pushes Bran around because he can't fight anymore. He just pushes Bran around, and Jaime takes over the role of that Mira had. So.
Oh god,
poor Mira. Did we miss anything? I feel we missed Bronn. I mean, not really much to say on that one besides the prostitutes mentioning Ed Sheeran's character. Qyburn coming to Bronn, giving him the crossbow, which I don't think he's going to go through with it, of course. I really don't.
Yeah, and you know what? What's interesting is that's the most we've ever heard about Qyburn's backstory, was the fact that, like, he thought he was going to die poor and his motivation is power. Like, we've never had any motivation or backstory to Qyburn at all, and that's the most we've ever gotten.
That's not true. We back in season 3, Jaime, it was episode 8, I believe, right before Jaime goes back to rescue Brienne in season 3. Jaime's asking Qyburn, "So what's your story? Did you get expelled from the Citadel for touching little boys or something?" And Qyburn goes, "I was a little too curious, with certain things," and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean...
Right. Get kicked out of the Citadel for experimentation.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get a hint as to it, but here I guess we get a bit more.
Yeah. We still don't know how he ended up in Harrenhal, found by Robb.
Right. Actually, well, wasn't he with Tywin before Robb found him?
We don't know. So his first appearance in the show is
when Robb found him, like almost.
Robb goes into Harrenhal and finds that there's been a slaughter, right. And everybody's dead except for
because
Qyburn.
the Lannisters abandoned it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I forget who slaughtered all of the.
Most likely the Mountains.
Everybody there. Yeah, but I don't know, but why slaughter your own people?
Probably because they didn't want to take them with them. Probably because they wanted to demoralize the northern forces who were going to be stationed there. Maybe it's because they had a limited supply of food, so they couldn't take everybody with them, and they didn't want to risk those people going off and telling the Northern Army information, troop count.
Yeah, it's a really weird scene, but nonetheless, we find Harrenhal abandoned with bodies everywhere, and for some reason, Qyburn's there. We have no idea what he was doing, and he's barely surviving, but Robb, like, nurses him back to health.
And then he becomes the maester for Harrenhal while Roose Bolton is stationed there.
Yes. Yes.
I would love it if towards the very end of the show, Qyburn somehow survives the whole thing. He somehow survives and just goes off into Essos and disappears. I really want that ending for, like, someone who's, like, kind of despicable, you know? Like, there aren't that many despicable characters left. But no, that's the ending I wanted for Littlefinger, that Sansa exiles him from the north, tells him to leave, go and never return. Doesn't even give him a horse. And the last time we see Littlefinger, he's walking into the forest, into the darkness, and we never see him again. His fate is left unknown and for viewers' interpretation. I would want something like that for Qyburn, because Qyburn's not that evil. Nah.
Well, I mean, show Qyburn is... Well, I mean... Show Qyburn is only slightly evil. I mean, he did kill Pycelle, and he did come up with the plan for destroying the Sept.
Right. But it was Cersei who implemented the whole thing. She's pulling the strings.
Right.
So, but book.
I mean, it's true that book Qyburn is much more evil, but he's evil. But it's like these degrees of evil. Like it's like Joffrey's not as bad as Ramsay. Things like that.
So, is there anything we're missing from this episode? I feel like there's something we're missing, maybe. God, I've seen it 3 times, but like I'm drawing a blank here. There was something did you find something?
No. I think we covered a lot. It was mostly reunions, and I can't say much, except that there's a lot of characters, not much to do, and we covered all the important beats.
You know what's funny? Like, everybody was complaining, like, nothing happened. Yeah, first off, guys, like, a lot of you guys hate watch this show, and I get it. It's not as great as season 1, 2, 3, and even 4 in some regards. But you keep saying nothing happened. It's a setup episode. The first episode is always a setup episode to update us on what happened in the last episode of the final episode of the last season, to set up what's going on, where our characters are, and how they're going to go forward into the season, and sometimes even foreshadow things, like how in the beginning of season 5, Cersei starts up going up the Sept to bury Tywin. At the end of season 5, she is coming down the Sept to do her walk of shame. So, I mean, it does a lot of foreshadowing. But I will say that you guys love to hate watch this show. If this entire episode was battle, you would complain that, what about all the reunions? Like, everybody's just there and no one's going to talk to each other or acknowledge that they have history with each other? Come on.
No, they did their best to have their reunions. They got them all out of the way. Now we don't have to deal with them.
Right.
As much.
I mean, I think the only other reunion to have left is between Ed from the Night's Watch and Tormund. And I think that's it. That's everybody else. Yeah. Maybe Mira.
The Jaime
stuff, the Jaime situation. And the one thing I will say that is kind of atrocious is that the episode was around 48 to 50 minutes long. And everybody loves to argue with me on this. Guys, please do not include the last time on Game of Thrones segment or the opening.
Right, and the inside the episode.
Like the behind the scenes stuff and the ending stuff. Like, that's not content.
A friend of mine on Facebook actually posted, sometimes I watch Game of Thrones and I'm loving it, and then I look at the time left and it says 20 minutes and I'm like, yes. And she said it unironically, but I was like, 20 minutes left means the episode's almost over.
Yeah.
There's a lot of after material. The inside the episode, the previews from next time, the HBO ad, for season 2 of The Deuce or whatever they're putting in.
I always never watch that. I always never watch the behind the scenes stuff because I really don't care that much. I know a lot of other people do, and that's fine. But I'm coming here for the content. I'm coming here for the meat and bones, the actual episode. I even skip the intro most of the time.
The inside the episodes, it's a lot of non-versations, as they say. It's them talking and saying very little. Very obvious stuff. It's like Benioff sitting there going, well, John and Arya haven't seen each other in a long time, so when they see each other, it's it's a really powerful and an emotional scene. You're like, yeah, fuck, of course. Like,
I love your Benioff impression. Oh, by the way, I gotta say this before I forget it. I was watching your review. I fucking died laughing when the lamp came up. Oh, a shade of lamp. Hello there. What the fuck?
He's a fan. He's a fan favorite. He's a fan favorite.
Comes out of nowhere. Guys, if you haven't seen Preston's review, check it out. Like, it comes out of fucking the voice you give it. Jesus Christ. Is that supposed to be robotic or demonic? God damn, dude.
It's on Final Cut 10. It's the android voice. Yes.
All right, but Preston, let's wrap this up, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, SoundCloud, iTunes. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. And Preston, do me a favor, for the love of God, please don't upload it late again, because so many people were bitching at me. Carmine, why isn't Preston uploading? Is he okay? Can you check in? I'm not his fucking keeper. Like, I don't like. Please, Preston, please upload the day after the episode comes out.
I work as fast as I can. Jesus Christ.
Were people bugging you too?
Oh yeah, like all over. People are just wondering when it's coming out. Is it coming?
Guys, if you really want to know when it's coming out, just email him. I promise, he reads all his fucking emails. But guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.